Hello and assalamu alaikum everyone. I am Kashif Kamran and today I am having a very important discussion with all of you that is on the two new articles which has been published by the SBL examining team in the month of August 2022. Now in my first discussion, I will be discussing the first one, which is responsible leadership. Followed by that, I will be having a discussion on the second article, which is environmental and sustainability issues. Now, these two articles published by the examining team are extremely important because they would likely have an impact on your September 22 exams and onwards. Now, if a student is preparing for September 22 exams or the December 22 exams and onwards, you need to consider these articles, you need to read these articles, and you need to ensure that you watch this particular video so you have every possible information what this article expects from you. So two new articles published. The first of them is responsible leadership right in front of your screen, which I will be covering in my first video. Followed by that, in my second video, I will be covering the second one, which is on environment and sustainability issues. Now, let's open this discussion. Both the articles, whether we are looking at responsible leadership article, which is from the syllabus area A of the SBL syllabus, or later we look at the other article, which is on environmental and sustainability issues, which is from syllabus area B of the SBL syllabus. The theme of both the articles is stakeholders. The board of directors have to look beyond shareholders. That is what both the articles are focusing on, that the board of directors have to engage and have to recognize the broader stakeholders when they are taking decisions. And that will increase the wealth of the shareholders eventually, or that will increase the long-term wealth of the shareholders. So we know that in the SBL syllabus, we have two discussions. We have a shareholder theory, we have a stakeholder theory. We have a normative philosophy and we have an instrumental philosophy in the SBL paper. So this particular article, the first one on your screen, responsible leadership, and the second one to be covered, which is environmental and sustainability issues, both are from the mindset of a stakeholder theory. Both are from the mindset that the organizations should consider the stakeholder in their decision making, because that will eventually impact the long-term sustainable wealth of the shareholders. Now let's open this topic and let's start discussing responsible leadership, and that will broaden our discussion around the stakeholder theory. Responsible leadership, the new article, this is published in August 22, as I just mentioned, and aims at providing the definition of what is a responsible leadership, the benefit of a responsible leadership, and the role of responsible leadership in meeting the stakeholder expectation. So who is a responsible leader? So primarily, a responsible leader will connect with the stakeholder relationship, managing the stakeholders, not just the shareholder. So this particular article focuses on the definition, the benefits, the role of responsible leadership in meeting the stakeholder expectation. And this is from the syllabus area A of the SBL syllabus. Now moving onwards, let's first go down with defining what a responsible leadership is. Now, in terms of defining what a responsible leadership is, let's first look at the content and then I start explaining it. Responsible leadership may be considered as an extension of a stakeholder theory, but the business should focus not only on the stakeholder, but on sustainability, social responsibility, and ethical behavior in addition to financial objective. So what is a responsible leadership? A responsible leadership is the one which looks beyond financial objectives, which looks into sustainability, which looks into environment, which looks into social responsibility, which looks into corporate social responsibility, which looks into the ethical conduct of the business. So they are serving the interest of the broader stakeholders. They are serving the interest of the broader community as a business, because we know the business has an impact on the society. So if a business is having an impact on the society, the business has to serve not just the interest of the shareholder, which is their primary focus, but they also have to serve the interest of the stakeholder. And we know in the last 1 decade, particularly, the businesses have opened up and they're now coming with initiatives which are aimed at sustainability, which are aimed at social responsibility, which are aimed at ethical behavior, because they try to build their trust. They try to build their good repute in an in the society in which they are operating. So the businesses need to ensure that they're engaging with stakeholders. They are connecting with stakeholders. They're having a dialogue with stakeholders. They're involving the stakeholders in decision makings. They're considering them in decision making, because that will eventually help them with the sustainability of their financial objectives, with the increase the wealth of shareholder, which is primarily their purpose as a company. But they need to think in a different perspective. And that's where the responsible leadership comes in, because the responsible leadership would eventually be responsible for the long-term wealth of the shareholders. But in that, they need to broaden their mindset. They need to consider the stakeholders. They need to consider the importance of stakeholders. They need to consider the influence of stakeholders on their organization and how they connect with them. And they should start connecting with stakeholders in terms of sustainability practices, social responsibility practices, and good ethical conduct of the business. Now, moving on, of course, it is important that the tone is set from the top. If you want to establish a stakeholder theory culture, or if you want to establish a culture where stakeholders are considered, you communicate with stakeholders, you connect with stakeholders, you involve stakeholders, that culture has to be set from the top, because we primarily know the culture which comes from the top is more instrumental. The culture which comes from the top is more like a pristine capitalist. The culture which comes from the top is more like shareholder focused. So that culture has to change if the organization needs to focus on the stakeholder theory or on the relationship with stakeholders. The CEO and the board of directors, thus paving the way for managers at all levels of the organization to practice responsible leadership. So eventual start of the responsible leadership has to come from the top. And if that culture is developed, that will pave the way for all managers to become responsible leaders. So that is extremely important. Number third, therefore, it should be considered to be a key factor of organizational culture. So you have to blend that responsible leadership in your organization culture. You have to blend the stakeholder relationship, engaging with stakeholder as part of your organization culture, enabling and encouraging responsible behavior throughout the organization. So you have to enable, you have to encourage responsible behavior throughout the organization. And what is a responsible behavior? Being a responsible leader, not just looking at the financial objectives, but the broad spectrum where you have sustainability, where you have social responsibility, and where you have ethical behavior, ethical conduct of a business. So that is defining responsible leadership. A leader looking beyond the shareholders, a leader focusing on a stakeholder theory, a leader focusing on sustainability, social and ethical conduct of the business, and establishing that culture in the organization. Now, further, in terms of defining the responsible leadership, the idea of responsible leader being a steward, a citizen, a coach, and a visionary is relevant today as it was 2 decades ago. Now, this is what the SBL examining team is discussing in the article. They are saying that the idea of responsible leader being an agent, we know that the directors are agents of shareholder. being a steward, being a citizen, because we know as a director, as an organization, you are a corporate citizen. You are serving the society. You're serving the interest of the society. So you are a citizen, a corporate citizen, a coach, and a visionary is a relevant model today as it was 2 decades ago. So we still believe that a responsible leader is a steward. We still believe a responsible leader is a citizen. We still believe a responsible leader is a coach who guides the organization, who guides the manager, who ensure that the organization is on the right path for success. And a visionary, he's far-sighted. He looks into the future. He sets goals, and he ensures that he looks at the opportunities and threats in the future. That model of responsible leadership is still valid today. So the concept of responsible leader has evolved: steward, a citizen, a coach, and a visionary. But that has evolved, that has broadened to include stakeholders now, that have broadened to include sustainability, social practices, and ethical conduct of the business. So that has evolved in the last 2 decades. So probably the definition of a responsible leadership today has broadened or has evolved over the last 20 years. Responsible leadership links to both stakeholder theory, which we have discussed currently, and strategic planning, visionary, strategic planning. Now, we know that since we started discussion on the responsible leadership, we are focusing on stakeholder theory because that is the first parameter of being a responsible leader. So if you are a responsible leader, you need to focus on a stakeholder theory, not just the financial objectives. Secondly, it's a strategic planning, a planning for the future, looking into the future. And when you are taking decisions, when you are deciding your goals, you need to ensure the engagement with stakeholder. You need to ensure stakeholder satisfaction in terms of your customers, in terms of your suppliers, in terms of your lenders, in terms of your employees, because they're important. You cannot just ignore them when you're doing a strategic planning. You cannot just lose focus on them. You need to assess the needs of the customer. You need to assess what the customer wants. You need to assess how the demands, how the needs of the customers are changing, because that will ensure you serve them better. And if you are serving them better, indirectly, you are serving your shareholders better. Suppliers, relationships with suppliers. Are your suppliers satisfied with you? Are they satisfied with you in terms of you paying them on time? In terms of your financial relationships with your supplier, because you don't want to lose your supplier, because you do not want to lose your competitive advantage. So you want to have a continuity, right, with your supplier, because that if your supplier gets disconnected with you, your business will suffer. So engaging with them, building trust, building loyalties, assessing their needs, having a dialogue with them, whether they are your employees, keeping them satisfied, keeping them motivated, because eventually they are the one who needs to run the organization, who needs to produce the results of the organization. And you have to keep your lender happy as well, because the lender is the one who is giving you that liquidity, who is giving you the debt, who is giving you the finance to run the business. So the cut short story is that when you are doing a strategic planning and you're thinking about the future, you're thinking about 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, you need to ensure that your stakeholders are on board, the stakeholders are happy, you are thinking about them, you are assessing them, you are identifying their needs, you are identifying their issues, you're working on their issues, because you want to build a loyalty with your stakeholder. And we know in the era we are living in, stakeholder loyalty is very important, because that is the competitive advantage a business is looking for. If your business has stakeholder loyalty, customers, suppliers, employees, and lenders, your business has a sustainable advantage. Your business has a competitive advantage, which will bring returns to your shareholders eventually. So it's a stakeholder theory where you need to involve stakeholders, think about stakeholders, and a strategic planning is just it's just an extension of that stakeholder theory, that when you are taking decisions about the future, ensure your stakeholders are on board, they're happy, they're with you, and they will be with you just because of your good actions you are taking as an organization in terms of sustainability, social practices, and a good conduct of the business. So a responsible leader is visionary. A responsible leader wants to keep everyone happy, loyal, committed with the organization to make organization flourish and successful. Now, moving on, this is what we got at the end of the day. Responsible leader is about two things: stakeholder theory, ensuring a culture of stakeholder theory in the organization, enforcing the culture of stakeholder theory in the organization, right from the top to the bottom of the organization, and strategic planning, a careful strategic planning involving the stakeholders, involving the needs of stakeholder, assessing the needs of stakeholder to have a realistic strategic planning which is achievable and successful. Stakeholder theory: focus on the broader needs of others rather than the personal interest. So you're not looking at your self-interest, you're looking at the needs of other. Because if you're better serving the needs of other, your business is successful, long-term, sustainable. That is very important. We know that when we look at the organization's success, it is not measured in short term, it's measured in long term. So focus on the needs of others rather than the personal interest. Consider the societal and the moral implications of decision. Look at the impact of your decisions on society. Look at the impact, or assess the moral impacts, the ethical impacts of your decision, because you do not want to do any unethical practices. You do not want to do any practice which is against the society, because you don't want to face that negative press. We know business in the last few years have become very alert to the negative press. We know the press has become a very major pressure group globally in the last 1 decade, perhaps. But the businesses have become more concerned as well, because they want to avoid any negative press, because that really damaged the repute of the business. So whatever decisions they are taking, they need to consider their implications, their moral implications, their implications on society, because they do not want to take a decision which affects their repute or which brings them under a negative press. Ensure decision-making is based on long terms rather satisfying immediate priorities. You need to focus on long term. You need to focus on long-term goals, long-term wealth, sustainable wealth of the shareholders, not short terms. You're not just and the short terms are the one who look primarily at the shareholder. The short terms are the one who are instrumental. The short term are the ones who are looking at the pristine capitalist approach under the Gray Owen Adam model in your SBL paper. But long terms are the ones who are like proponents of social capital, who are social ecologists. A long term are the one who looks beyond the shareholders into stakeholders. So you need to be long term. You need to be normative as a business, thinking about the others as well, not just the shareholders. So stakeholder theory is one mindset which exists in SBL. Normative philosophies, we know there is a Gray Owen Adam model. There's a lot of approaches in Gray Owen Adam model which fits the stakeholder theory. You have a Johnson and Scholl model in SBL as well, where you focus on multiple stakeholder obligations. That is very, very important in the Johnson and Scholl model. You have a Carroll model of responsibility in SBL. You have a lot of CSR discussions. You have a lot of normative discussions in your SBL paper, where that normative mindset is built up. And that's where we're discussing today, the stakeholder theory. The repute of the organization can increase dramatically if it is known to always behave in a responsible way. And this is true. This is happening. This is how the business is trying to build a good image in a society among the stakeholders. Automatically the stakeholders start becoming loyal to the organization. They believe this organization is good. This organization has a good ethical conduct. So you want to avoid the negative criticism. You want to avoid the negative press. You want to build your repute. And that's where you need to engage with stakeholder. You want to satisfy them because you don't want any one of them to hit back at you through a negative press. Strategic planning. There should be a careful planning looking at all dimensions of the decisions, though it may take long, but there will be a long-term benefit of that. If you are thinking about your customers, your suppliers, your lenders, your employees, and you're thinking about them when you're taking a decision, and you are taking a time to decide, that is good, because that time you're taking to decide will have long-term benefits. At least when you take a decision, it will not be proven to be wrong. At least when you take a decision, you will not have any negative press. At least when you take a decision, it will not affect your reputation. It will not affect your competitive advantage because you've taken a careful decision, though it takes time, but you thought about every important stakeholder in your strategic planning. You know the Menlo matrix, right? You know that in the Menlo matrix, there are 4 sets of stakeholder in terms of power and interest. You need to prioritize the important ones. You need to ensure that the important ones are involved in your decision makings. And I just repeated that many times. Your lenders, your suppliers, your customers, your employees, they're extremely important. You need to ensure you're building trust around them. Difficulty for responsible leaders. It would be difficult for all leaders to display enhanced level of responsibility towards every aspect of society. We know there are 2 sets of leaders existing. We have normative leaders, we have instrumental leaders. We still do have leaders who are thinking short term. We still have leaders who are thinking shareholder, and they're not concerned about stakeholders at all. They're not concerned about customer relationship, supplier relationship, employee relationship, etc. So it would be difficult for all leaders, right? So we are not expecting this to come from all leaders. But yes, certain leaders, the good leaders, long-term, the leaders thinking long-term, the leaders which are visionary, would definitely become responsible and have become responsible over the last 1 decade. Examples given in this article covers responsible leadership in a supermarket and responsible leadership in a professional organization like an accounting firm. Let's look at those examples, because this article is exploring a responsible leader in a supermarket and how a responsible leader in a supermarket can portray that attitude or that culture, and how can we ensure a responsible leadership in a professional organization like an accounting firm. We know there are larger supermarkets like Walmart, we have eBay, we have Amazon coming into that mode of business as well. So we have very phenomenal supermarkets and hypermarkets being run across the world. Let's see how responsible leadership is demonstrated there. Supermarket. For example, a supermarket chain could display greater responsibility towards supplier because they need to ensure continuity of supply chain. They want to ensure that the finished products are coming to the supermarkets, and they want to ensure that the relationship with supplier is good. Greater responsibility towards supplier, particularly far upstream in the supply chain, educating them on environmental friendly farming techniques, assisting them in the provision of new technology to aid these techniques. Now, a supermarket, if you look at the supply chain of supermarkets, some of the supermarkets have expanded so much that when you look at this supply chain and you look at the backward integration of a supermarket, right from the start of the raw material, they source their own raw materials. They need to educate their farmers. They need to educate the people involved in the raw material process, in the backward integration process, to be responsible, to ensure proper technological techniques, proper environmental friendly techniques are used in the production, in the processing of the raw materials, because they want to ensure that every part of their supply chain is environmental friendly, is sustainable, and it is having a positive impact on the society. Now, we know that lots of businesses, including the supermarkets, which are involved in the backward integrations, having their own farmings and having their own cultivations and producing their own raw materials, they have invested a lot in research and development, ensuring their techniques to produce the raw materials are sustainable, are environmental friendly, their consumption of water, the biodiversity concepts have come in the backward integration. So the cut short story is that in the supply chain of a supermarket, a responsible leadership needs to consider where are the problems and how those problems can be overcome. Because if you are a responsible leadership, you need to evaluate your supply chain. You need to see the number of stakeholders in supply chain, and you want to educate them. You want to ensure that each of the stakeholder at any possible stage of a supply chain is delivering socially and environmentally. They're happy, they're satisfied, you are paying them back, they're getting good salaries, they're getting good wages. But apart from that, they were getting a good working environment. But apart from that, the practices are environmental friendly. You're not doing anything which is damaging the environment. So every possible part of your supply chain is green, is environmental friendly. You're working on recyclings, you're working on reuse, you're working on reductions, the 3 Rs. You're working on environmental sustainable practices. You're using the green energy. You are using every possible measure in the supply chain which enhance the sustainability concept. So supermarkets, the larger supermarkets, the hyper supermarkets, the markets like Walmarts and eBay and Amazon, you must have seen a lot of technology has come into the process. That technology has improved their environmental sustainability. That technology has ensured that every step which was illogical, which was extra, has been eliminated. So their supply chain becomes more efficient, more shortened, more better, and uh, more productive. So that is supermarket and a responsible leadership. Professional organizations like an accounting firm. A professional organization such as an accounting or an investment firm might display elements of a responsible leadership by creating enhanced safeguards for its staff and its client, and by ensuring that the staff well-being is emphasized in organizations traditionally known for long working hours. Now, we know when we look at audit firms, accountancy firms, we know it is all dependent on staff. They are service organizations, and a service organization works on staff well-being. Social part becomes more important. Well-being is emphasized. So when we look at professional accounting firms, the focus has to be on staff because that is your human capital. That's where the investment has to come in. So you need to be more socially responsible as an organization. You need to ensure that you are trying to develop practices of shortening the working hours, flexible working plans to ensure that the staff is motivated, encouraged to work better. Now, we know over the last few years, organizations have dramatically changed in terms of how they work in the best interest of their employees and ensuring greater productivity. We know that there are so many countries in the world which has now come down to a 4 hour a day work plan rather than 8 hours a day work plan. And the results are amazing. The productivity is improving. The targets are being met rather than working for 8 long hours, working for 4 shorter hours, even like 4 days a week, not even 6 days a week, not even 5 days a week, still getting better results. So that means if you keep your staff happy, you try to reduce burdens on them, that will improve their efficiency. They will work better in those 4 hours and they will produce better results for the organization. So the well-being. So the responsible leader in a professional organization is the one who needs to focus on the well-being of employees, providing them the best working environment, best salaries, best wages, and more importantly, looking at their working hours, reducing their working hours, because that will improve the productivity, efficiency, and motivation of the employees. 4-day working week, an example of responsible leadership. Responsible leadership can be seen to bring benefits to organizations. For example, some organizations and even countries have introduced a 4-day working week without implementing a pay cut for workers. You're not getting a pay cut, but they have introduced a 4-day working week and you're still getting the same salary. A 4-day working week, 3 days off, See the amount of motivation you will be having. I'm going to my office, I'm working 4 days a week, and even some of them has given you a flexible options, working from home or working from office, and or in a hybrid model. We know that COVID has also dramatically changed this landscape, but again, it was happening before COVID as well. But yes, the COVID has increased that. The flexible hours, working from home, hybrid models, because I think the employers have realized in that process of COVID that even if we have hybrid models, working from home, that still the work is going on, the work is not stopping. And technology has played a crucial part in this 4-day working week we're seeing in front of us, because things have become more technological based now, connected. We are connected. So 4 days a week, look at the impact, look at the psychological impact you have on employees. They know they're coming for 4 days. They need to put their best in 4 days, and 3 days they relax, they sit down, they had times with families, go on vacation. And that's improved their motivational aspects, their psychological aspects, and that brings productivity, better results, better targets in an organization. There is an evidence of benefits to both the workers and the organization. For the workers, there is a reduction in stress 4 days a week and an improvement in the work-life balance. Some of the organization involved have found increased productivity with 4 days a week. One large technological company reported a 40% increase in productivity, greater staff retention, and satisfaction. And that is what is needed at the end of the day. Satisfaction, retention, loyalty, commitment, motivation, because that is what you need to boost your results, to boost your profitability, and to work in the better interest of the shareholders through the stakeholder theory. So this is amazing, right? So there are still lots of countries which are not coming to this 4-day working week model. They need to realistically think about that. We know lots of developing countries, a lot of bureaucratic countries are still taking the most of the employees in one single day. But the more technological efficient countries and companies, responsible leaders, knowing how to work in a better environment are coming down to the 4-day working week, and it's becoming a successful model globally. Organizations implementing this have also reported enhanced environmental ratings, lower use of energy because you're coming 4 days a week, and a reduction in vehicles on the road 4 days a week. And the ability to attract talent into the organization. More and more people will come to your organization. They like to work in your organization because you're giving them 4 days a week plan. So everyone would love to work in an organization which is giving you a 4-day working week, which could lead to greater innovation over time. Now, when you're working 4 days a week, it will bring more innovations, more technology, more use of technology, more technological thinkings will come in, how to improve works. So overall, there is a good environmental impact, good social impact, and a good psychological impact coming out of this 4-day working week, and a win-win situation for employers and employees both. So organizations, even like accounting firms, even like supermarkets can come with it. We know supermarket works on mostly on those shift models, and those shift models can be rotatable with this 4-day working week. Could be an excellent example of responsible leadership. Okay, now towards few of the last things from the Examiner article. Responsible leadership isn't a standalone area. Responsible leadership cannot be considered a standalone area in the role of strategic business leader. There are close links with strategic planning, culture, ethics, sustainability in terms of public value. You cannot just say that responsible leadership is like a standalone area. A responsible leadership is from the top, and it needs to connect with your culture, with your ethics, with your environmental practices, sustainability practices, and your strategic planning. It's like something which is synchronized, and it needs to bring a synergistic impact on the business. So a responsible leader is the one who needs to take the initiative and who needs to be responsible in the areas of strategic planning, culture, ethics, sustainability, and in terms of public value. So it's not something standalone. It's not something isolated in the organization. It's something which is connected with the organization. It's something which is synchronized with the organization. And that's where the long-term impact is coming in. That's where a synergistic impact is coming in. So responsible leadership isn't a standalone area, it's a connected area within the organization. Where accountant fits in the concept of responsible leadership, because at the end of the day, we are doing ACCA, we are all accountants. Where are we fitting into this concept? Let's see what the examining team has to tell us from this article. A key role of accountants, particularly, is to ensure that the company is not simply focused on financial objectives, but rather to propose and implement other key metrics and provide evidence of the positive impacts of responsible decisions. Integrated reporting can assist with this, although it is important to recognize that not all examples of responsible leadership have a measurable impact individually, but cumulatively they contribute to a better organizational value and performance. We know accounting, financial reporting, the role of accountant has also evolved in the last 10 years. The concept of integrated reporting, social and environmental reporting, the auditors giving assurance on social and environmental practices, the auditors conducting green audits. I think this is an involvement which has taken place in the last 10 years. And this shows that how accountants have become responsible. If businesses are becoming responsible, if businesses are indulging in practices which are environmental, sustainable, social, etc., and becoming responsible leaders, on the other way around, the accounting firms, the auditing firms are becoming responsible as well by giving us assurances on matters which are not financial, giving us assurances on sustainable practices, on environmental practices, on social practices, conducting the social audits, the environmental audits, the green audits, ensuring the concept of integrated reporting. We know integrated report, the lots of audit firms, accountancy firms are giving consultancy to their clients of adopting an integrated reporting approach, defining their 6 capitals, reporting on their 6 capitals, and ensuring that the auditor gives an assurance on the overall integrated reporting. So that is a concept which is evolving, and that's where the accountancy profession has evolved. It's not just financial statements anymore, which the accountants or auditors are looking for. It's beyond financial statements now. It's more into integrated reporting. It's more into social environmental reportings, sustainable reportings, consultancy. The audit firms are giving a lot of consultancy to their business clients about how they can improve upon their business prospects, how they can translate their business into a better integrated thinking, integrated approach, so on and so forth. Finally, examiner, after discussing what is a responsible leadership, what a responsible leadership can do, how this connects with the organization, what is the strategic planning element of a responsible leadership, and what is the stakeholder theory with a responsible leadership, giving examples of supermarkets, giving examples of professional accountants, etc. Finally, examiner gives us an example of a car manufacturer to understand responsible leadership. Now, I'll show you the article. You will read the article where a case study on a car manufacturer has been given. And you will understand after this video that how a car manufacturer can demonstrate a responsible leadership. Because we know there are so many environmental implications when it comes to car manufacturing. And we know over the last 10 years, electric cars, hybrid cars, new cars being produced on new technologies, low carbon emissions have come out. It has become reality. So we know that the car manufacturers are engaged in the future planning to better serve the interest of the society, better serve the interest of consumers by coming out with new products, better cars, which are more environmental friendly, because there are so much regulations coming internationally, which is curbing the number of vehicles on road, which is curbing vehicles which have higher emissions. So I think the government regulations have also impacted on the car manufacturers to redefine their models, to redefine their cars, to come with better cars, innovations which are environmental friendly, which has less carbon emissions, etc. Now, I'll just discuss a brief of this case study, and we'll leave this discussion, and then you can just read throughout and you will hopefully understand this. Now, when you look at the Examiner article on responsible leadership, if I can just show you that. Okay, I hope you can see right in front of your screen the article on responsible leadership now. Okay, now in this article, we've covered every aspect in the presentation today, but right here, organizational behavior, which is on page number 2. Examiner has covered a car manufacturer here, and they have taken example of how a car manufacturer can demonstrate a responsible leadership. Now, lots of examples which we just took in our presentation today, like a 4-day working week, or like working for the welfare of employees, giving them better salary, giving them a better work environment. Because in a car manufacturing environment, there are a lot of workers. You need to think about protections, giving them proper uniforms, proper gloves, proper instruments. Health and safety becomes a very important issue in a car manufacturing environment. We know in developed part of the world, a lot of robotics have come into car manufacturing, a lot of technology have come in car manufacturing, but still the workforce in a car manufacturing needs to be protected. Health and safety, training, development, working hours, good pays, good salaries, because you need to keep them up. So that's this one side of the stakeholder. Second, we know there are lots of developments taking place in car manufacturing industry in terms of the materials, using sustainable materials, using environmental sustainable materials, steel, rubber, leather. They're doing research and development, how we can make better use of materials, which materials, research on leathers, rubber, metal, and ensuring that the materials which gets fit into the car sourced are sourced from a supplier who is environmental friendly. You need to bring uh, that concept of responsible leadership within the supply chain of a car manufacturer. You need to ensure that the suppliers you are engaged with as a car manufacturer are environmental friendly, are demonstrating responsible leadership. None of your supplier is involved in any bad practices like bribery, corruption, or child labor practices, because you don't want to source from such organizations as a car manufacturer. We know if you look at the supply chain of a car manufacturer, there could be a lot of suppliers involved in it. And being a car manufacturer, you need to demonstrate a responsible leadership of ensuring that all your suppliers are ethical and are ensuring they themselves are responsible leaders. And that's from where you're procuring your raw materials as an organization. So they've given you a lot of examples here. You can just read through them. And on page number 2, continued on page number 3, they're telling us lots of things here which a car manufacturer can do. On the bottom of the page number 2, they are giving us that this is what the car manufacturer can do. Number 1, they can involve stakeholders into the decision makings, which we have discussed in the discussion today, that you need to involve your employees, your suppliers, your customers. You need to realistically think what your customer needs. What are changing needs of customer in terms of cars? Suppliers, you need to think about your employees into your decision making. Considering the human and the environmental impact of your car manufacturing, the impact you have on your employees, on your suppliers, on your customers, and what are environmental impacts. You need to consider them when you're thinking about the car manufacturing. Implementing end-of-life vehicle process. End-of-life vehicle process is not accumulating inventory. We know the just-in-time techniques, shortening the inventory cycle, lowering the inventory is becoming the new concept. We know stockpilings, piling up the cars, accumulating the cars, because we know with technology coming in, the customer moods and customer needs are changing rapidly. You cannot just keep a very significant stockpiles of cars, because the models are changing more rapidly, the designs are changing more rapidly, more technology is coming into the cars, competitors are coming with new cars on a very rapid basis. So you cannot just pile up the cars. because otherwise you will have a lot of obsolescence inventory and so on and so forth. So you need to be responsible leader in terms of ensuring the implementing end of life process, ensuring that you're not stockpiling a lot of cars manufactured. Behaving in a socially responsible manner. Uh, Again, that's about how you serve the society, how you move into the corporate social responsibility, how you ensure the better engagement with society where you exist as a car manufacturer. Providing public value, ensuring your repute in the society, in the country where you're existing, charity, donations, philanthropy. This all can create that public value of your organization. And developing a social responsible culture throughout the organization. That's the role of a responsible leader, right? So read through the case study on page number 2 and 3 about a car manufacturer and how a car manufacturer can ensure being a responsible leader. These are examples which you will read and you will understand, because at the end of the day, this article has been written for the students, right, to read and understand themselves. So I've covered numerous parts of this article in my presentation. And this case study on car manufacturer given on page number 2 and 3 of the article, you should read it. Try to understand the context of responsible leadership and prepare yourself well for your upcoming exams. When you look at the summary of the key points examiner has given to us in the car manufacturer case. So if you're a car manufacturer and you are demonstrating a responsible leadership, number one, you need to involve stakeholders into your decision making. Consider the human and environmental impact when making the supply chain decisions, not procuring from suppliers who are not demonstrating responsible leadership, not procuring from suppliers who are involved in bribery, corruption, or bad practices or child labor. So you need to consider your supply chain. You need to consider that every part of your supply chain is environmental friendly and there is no human bad practices involved in your supply chain. Implementing end of life process, not stockpiling a lot of inventory, because there could be a risk of inventory obsolescence with lots of technological changes coming in and a rapid change in customer needs and demands for vehicles. Behaving in a socially responsible manner. Try to ensure that every part of your supply chain, there is a social responsible manner, working for the best interest of your employees, your workers, and everything, providing them protective equipment, looking at their health and safety. Providing public value, involving in a lot of donations, philanthropic, a lot of social activities, which can create a better image of your organization in the country or in the world you're operating. Developing a social responsible culture, that is a tone which has to come from the top. The directors have to set the tone that we are responsible leaders, so that is demonstrated across every aspect of the organization. This is what the examiner is focusing on in that car manufacturing case, and this is what demonstrates a responsible leader, not just in a car manufacturing organization, but in many other organizations. A supermarket example came in, professional accounting examples came in, the role of accountant evolving, the accountant themselves becoming responsible leaders. So different aspects of responsible leadership have been covered in the examiner article. That give us a hint as well, that what sort of a case study structure can develop in future. A car manufacturer or a professional accounting firm or a supermarket could be future possible case studies in SBL as well. So you need to consider that as a thought process, and always behaving ethically as a business, conduct of the business, even anti-bribery, anti-corruption, anti-child labor practices. These are all part of behaving ethically. Summary of the case, the car manufacturing case. Over the long term, this organization will develop a reputation for responsibility, which will encourage existing and potential staff, customers, and communities alike. So if you develop this approach, which the examiner thinks is from point number 1 to 7 in a car manufacturing organization, over the long term, this organization implementing all the 1 to 7 will develop a repute for responsibility, which will encourage existing and potential staff, customers, and communities alike. People would like to come and work in your organization. Customer would like to buy from your organization. And this will give you a win-win situation. As reputation increases, more suppliers and investors will want to be involved with this organization, allowing it to continue to be successful even as it grows. Win-win situation. So if you invest in responsible leadership, if you give time commitment to responsible leadership, if you enforce a culture of responsible leadership in your organization, you will get dividends. You will get return in the form of long-term success. The employees would like to come and work in your organization. The supplier would like to supply raw material to you. The customer would like to buy from you. The lender would like to lend you, and the shareholders will be happy. So I think this is a long-term phenomena. This is a long-term thinking. This is a strategic thinking. This is a normative thinking where you need to broaden your mindset as a responsible leader. And eventually, at the end of the day, you are benefiting your shareholders. So this is responsible leadership, nothing new. It is just a concept of stakeholder theory extending, just a concept of a director thinking beyond shareholders, or just a concept where a director needs to be more normative than instrumental. And that's the summary part of this article written by the examining team addressing the syllabus area A. Now, in my next discussion, I will be coming up with the second new article published by the examining team in August 22, which is environmental and sustainability issue. But for the time being, this particular video was focused on the very first article published by the examining team, the new one in August 22 for exams in September 22 and onwards, which was about responsible leadership. I hope you will benefit from this discussion. You need to play this video, keep a pen and paper with you, download the article, keep a printout of the article with you. And I hope an investment of like 2 hours on this article with the video would give you the right exam dimension. So this is a this was a discussion on responsible leadership. And I'm Kashif Kamran, your facilitator in this discussion, signing off from this discussion on the SBL new article. Wish you all success. Take care. Goodbye and Allah Hafiz.